And I was, in doing my research, just constantly discovering things I didn't know, didn't fully understand. Knowing when to shut up was one of them. Silences. This guy was so eloquent. Wrote the Gettysburg Address and delivered it right down the road here. Wrote the second inaugural. Speeches that are considered American literature. They're so great. He was great with words, but he also would be great with silences. And there's a friend of his and a political ally, Leonard Swett, who said of his friend Abraham Lincoln that he could be so friendly and appear to be so candid in a meeting and so honest that he seemed to have disclosed everything, when in reality he had chosen his words so carefully as to disclose nothing of his plans and purposes. And there were many people who would go in and meet Abraham Lincoln and find him extremely open and friendly and walk away and just have no idea what did I get out of this meeting? They didn't get any of the questions answered that they wanted answered. He would only talk about the things that he thought would advance his cause, which doesn't make him dishonest, Abe. Exactly.
Right.
He wasn't a liar, but he said what he wanted to say and only that.
And again, one of the reasons he was a master politician. So how did you choose the 16 meetings?
Improvisation, which I feel is appropriate to the subject. I don't think Lincoln came in with a giant master plan. I'm going to end slavery in this way, for example, or even I'm going to become president in this way. He was far thinking. He was strategic in his thinking, but he also felt his way through. And maybe just because it's how I am, or because of the inspiration of it, I don't know, that's how I got to these 16 characters. When I first persuaded my publisher to buy this book, I talked about some of the meetings, and several of the characters I mentioned are not even in the book anymore. I wrote entire chapters about characters that I ended up leaving out. And I would get going, I would write something, then I'd get stuck. And when I got stuck, I would eventually realize I'm stuck because I haven't researched enough yet. And I would go back to the archives or reach out to a historical society somewhere and try to find more information and get it back in. And then I'd get writing again. And I was regularly discovering characters. Some of the people in this book are super famous, and you can read about in other books. I mean, Doris Kearns Goodwin's Team of Rivals has William H. Seward as one of the characters, one of the rivals in Lincoln's cabinet. And there's a chapter on Seward in here. There are other characters that I knew only their name or absolutely nothing about, who were also part of the story. Someone like Mary Ellen Wise, a young woman who said she was from my home state of Indiana, that she cut off her hair, put on men's clothes, enlisted in the Union Army, and fought in the Civil War. Her story is hard to document, as you will read if you buy this book. But hard to document, but there's no doubt hundreds of women, it seems, did this in the course of the Civil War, wanted to serve for various reasons and got away with it and periodically were caught. And she was caught in uniform in the South. And although her claims of her service are just unverifiable and in some cases not true, she showed up at the White House in 1864, got into a meeting with the President of the United States and said, "I'm having trouble collecting my back pay. Can you help me with this?" Amazing character. And there are other people. There's Frederick Douglass, one of the super famous ones, who's the most important character in this book other than Lincoln. But there's also William Florville, a Haitian immigrant who came as a young man to the United States, lived in Baltimore, moved to New Orleans, then moved to Springfield, Illinois. And for as many as 20 years or so, his customers as a barber included Abraham Lincoln. And in 1860, in November of 1860, Lincoln decided to grow a beard. And the beard that he grew, as some of you may know, this is a fact I did not know. The beard that Lincoln had is called a Shenandoah beard, a style of beard a little different than yours because there's no mustache and you also shaved down here. So you needed someone to delicately do that shaving. And the guy who did it was William Florville, this black man from Haiti, who, because he was black, although he was Lincoln's friend and neighbor and they knew each other's kids and they had this kind of intimate relationship, he lived legally in a totally different world from Abraham Lincoln. Character after character after character who was new to me.
But there was a girl, a little girl,
Yes.
who did suggest the whiskers.
Grace Bedell, if I'm saying the name
I
correctly.
think you are, yeah.
Do you guys know this story? It's one. I mean, even if you know this story, I just you get tears when you. She writes this letter saying, "I'm not old. I can't vote. I'm a girl, but I got 4 brothers, and I can get my brothers to vote for you. I think, but you don't look so great, and I think you'd look better with a beard." I'm paraphrasing, but this is the substance really of the letter, and the letter survives. And Lincoln writes back and says, thank you for the suggestion. I really appreciate it, but I've gone all my adult life without a beard. Don't you think that people would find it a piece of silly affectation if I did it now? But apparently he thought about it, and for whatever reason, decided to grow a beard. And at some point in November of 1860, it is said that he went to the barber shop and told the barber, let's give it a chance to grow. And again, someone had to do the sculpting. And so this man, William Flourville, who I'd never heard of, had something to do with the most famous political symbol in American history.
One of the things that is striking about that, I mean, is that you mentioned Mary Ellen Wise showing up to collect her pension. It was only a couple months, I think. It was like
she kept telling different stories. She wanted either 5 months back pay or 2 years.
Yeah,
back
okay.
Pay.
But it was $13.
There's a lot of questions about this person.
Yeah,
anyway.
I think it was $13 a month.
It wasn't very much money at all.
No.
Right, because they were so poorly paid. Yeah.
But she shows up at the White House and gets a meeting with the President of the United States. And what I've learned about Lincoln over the years is that one of his big complaints was that he had everyone showing up looking for jobs. So maybe Mary Ellen Wise was, a distraction for him.
Yeah. Yeah. He wanted to see so-called common people. He wanted to see those who came to him. And in fact, his secretaries were the ones who would be distressed because he needed to be spending his time on other things. They thought he was exhausting himself. But when they tried to come up with systems so that he would only see the people he really needed to see, he would object. And he didn't like anything standing between him and the people. I think this is one of the coolest things about Lincoln. I think it's one of the coolest things about the early presidency, and it underlines the way that a republic, a democracy, ought to be. There used to be many more occasions on which virtually anybody could show up and talk to the president. You could go and sit in the anteroom and just be nobody, but you said you had business with the president and you might get in to see the president of the United States. You could go, this was true at least through Theodore Roosevelt. You could go to the White House on New Year's Day and stand in a line and the president would shake your hand. Theodore Roosevelt, I think, set some kind of a record. I'm going to get the number wrong, but it's like 6,000 handshake, just like unbelievable speed. And Lincoln was part of this tradition. And the thing that I want to underline, the reason I say that is democratic, is because a lot of the presidents, the ones who were the best at their jobs, felt an obligation to see these people who were wasting their time. Because you're the president, you work for them. James K. Polk has stuff in his diary where he's really crabby. He's like, I can't believe there's these losers out in my anteroom today. And they're so selfish. All they want is jobs. They want me to give them a job. I hate them, but I have to see them. And that's the great part. He felt he had to see them. And that's a great way for a public servant to feel, even though I'm sorry that James K. Polk had to see job seekers. But anyway.